A rogue cop is busted for allegedly selling drugs and guns out of his house. Why has the reaction been so mixed?
Serving a simple warrant turns deadly for one local officer. Should there be some policy changes?
Friends and family say goodbye to a hometown hero. What friends and family of Edwin Jackson want you to remember about him.
The Black Panther phenomenon continues. We'll tell you how you can score 4 free tickets to an early showing.
After a soggy weekend, more rain is on the way, and the flood watch that was supposed to expire tonight has been extended.
A local police officer finds himself on the other side of the law tonight. Investigators say they found pot inside his patrol car. He's an officer in Hogansville, a small town in Troup County, but he's facing charges tonight in Coweta County because investigators say he was selling drugs and guns at his home in Coweta. That officer has resigned, but when we checked out the reaction on Facebook, it wasn't the outrage you might expect. Ryan Kruger joins us live from Hogansville tonight. Ryan, what are you hearing out there tonight?
Well, you know, Vinny, Hogansville is a small town, so certainly a lot of supporters for Officer Daniel Kemp tonight. They say he's a good man. They trust him. They do believe he's innocent in this case. But the police chief here in Hogansville says when investigators looked in the officer's patrol car, they found a bag of pot, and that's just the beginning. When Hogansville police officer Daniel Kemp showed up to work late last week, he was met by Coweta County Sheriff's deputies. Investigators say they watched Kemp deal drugs and sell a gun out of his house. When authorities checked his patrol car, they say they found a bag of weed.
He's a good man, just personally. Everything about him, he's good. And just for something like this to happen is just crazy.
This woman asked us not to show her face because she's concerned about how her opinions will be taken in her small hometown.
It's a very small town, and he knew everybody, everybody knows him.
The Hogansville Police Department says Kemp has worked for them since 2016, but late last week, the Coweta County Sheriff's Office started watching his house. It's not clear when or how that investigation started. Investigators say once inside his house, they found more marijuana, this time individually wrapped, along with meth and oxycodone. On social media, many of you are sounding off about the accusations. Some people in Hogansville say Kemp should be locked up, while others are coming to his defense, giving him the benefit of the doubt and saying he's a law-abiding person. And Kemp bonded out of jail last week. He could not be reached tonight for comment, though we are told he resigned from the Hogansville Police Department last week, shortly after his arrest. Vinny?
All right, thanks so much, Ryan. 2 Henry County deputies are healing tonight while their community mourns the loss of Locust Grove police officer Chase Maddox. All 3 were shot Friday while serving a warrant. A GoFundMe for Officer Maddox's family has already raised more than $78,000. And today, Christy Etheridge was in church with people who know and love those men as Deputy Corley's brother delivered a special message to a community asking why.
If we want to find answers to our problems and answers to why things happen in life, don't turn to the world for the answers. Turn to God.
As a pastor, when situations come up like this, everybody runs to the pastor. Pastor, why?
Being the pastor of this church doesn't come easy to answer that question.
God knows what he's doing, but that don't take away the pain. God knows everything, but that still don't take away the pain. God's in control, but that still don't take away the pain.
For Pastor Wade Corley, even knowing his brother is alive doesn't take away the pain of knowing Michael Corley was one of 3 officers shot on Friday while doing their jobs, just trying to serve a warrant in Locust Grove. But then, the suspect started firing.
We just got information from PD.
Trying to get in touch with him repeatedly, calling, and no answer.
There's possibly 3 hits.
One of his officers picked his phone up and said there's been an accident.
We have one obviously with 1 graze and another multiple chest wounds.
And I asked, can he talk? Can he talk to me? He said he's been shot.
The officer who responded as backup, Chase Maddox, was killed. Sid Calloway is still in the hospital fighting for his life, but Michael Corley's life was spared.
I've heard him say it over and over and over, I'm still breathing. I'm still breathing. That's important to me. I mean, I could have been planning his funeral.
Instead, he's preaching a sermon and dedicating it to those in blue, playing a special version of the song Hallelujah to honor police officers.
Get the call that your friend's been shot.
Thankful his brother's absence in the pews is only temporary.
And Ron Jones joins me now. Ron, not just a great anchor and reporter, journalist, but also a former police officer, for those of you who don't know. I want to talk to you about two of the stories that we're covering tonight involving police. The first, the police officer who was allegedly selling guns and drugs out of his patrol car out in Hogansville. Daniel Kemp's his name. How does an officer turn from good to bad?
To allegedly bad. Well, you know, when you first go through the background check, you're pretty much squeaky clean. They do a background check just to talk to, and you get references and all that other good stuff. But once you get into that patrol car and you're working as a police officer, if you come in contact with some corrupt people and you allow those corrupt people to corrupt you, then you can also act just like a criminal out of your patrol car.
In your years in the force, did you ever see it happen?
I have. Unfortunately, I have.
This is one that really broke everyone's heart. Officer Chase Maddox is serving a warrant out of municipal court for a traffic violation, a bench warrant for a traffic violation. Did you ever serve warrants?
I've served warrants every now and then.
What's the mind frame as you're going in there? I mean, do you know how dangerous it potentially is?
Oh, absolutely, because when you get to the front door, you don't know if the suspect on the other end is looking outside the window or looking through the peephole, and it can actually see you approaching the front door. But anytime that I served a warrant, I made sure that I have a cover officer with me, knock on the door. The other officer would be in the back of the house to see if the suspect would escape. But it was rare that we would do that. We would leave that up to something like the fugitive detail that have, a much more greater show of force.
All right, Ron, appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Absolutely.
All right, turning now to another heartbreaking story, which is the death of a local football hero. His name is Edwin Jackson. He died last Sunday. A suspected drunk driver struck and killed him in Indiana. He played for the Colts. Well, tonight, a memorial for Edwin Jackson at a church in downtown Atlanta, and that's where Natisha Lance is. Natisha?
Vinny, you know, it was just before dusk when friends and family of 26-year-old Edwin Jackson started to gather together for the first time to start saying goodbyes at the Big Bethel AME Church. This is a church that he was a member of. Now, we weren't allowed inside during this visitation, but I was able to speak to friends outside the church who say what they will remember most about Edwin was the positive impact that he had on them as well as others.
Edwin was mannerable, respectful. He's the kind of person that any parent would want as a son.
He has been a contribution to our nation, our city, our state, and I just love him from the bottom of my heart.
It was a steady stream of friends and family who made their way up the steps of Big Bethel AME Church to say goodbye to Edwin Jackson. One of the funeral directors tells me those attending viewed Jackson for the last time in a cherrywood open casket. There were flowers that we saw delivered to the church, some of those coming from those close to Jackson, including Camp Creek Middle School. And that funeral will be right back here tomorrow at 11 a.m. We're expecting to hear from the head coach of the Colts, which is where Edwin Jackson was on the team. We're also expecting to see the Westlake High School marching band, who is expected to perform after the service outside the church. Now, the family has said that Edwin Jackson was able to set up a foundation called the Edwin Jackson 53 Foundation before he passed away, and it gave scholarships to college athletes who were walk-on players as well as underserved youth. And the family says in lieu of flowers, if you would like to honor Jackson, that to make a donation to that foundation, and you can find out more about it at edwinjackson53.com.
I'm Ron Jones with your speed feed. A manhunt taking place in Atlanta tonight after a man changing his tire is shot multiple times and left dying in the streets. Now, we've just learned the victim is identified as 33-year-old Justin Edwards. Atlanta police say Edwards was shot while he was in the parking lot of a restaurant in Cabbagetown. This is right near the intersection of Boulevard and Memorial Drive Southeast. And investigators have not said yet if they believe Edwards was targeted. A local rapper's brother is shot to death outside his business on Howell Mill Road in Atlanta. The victim, identified as 48-year-old Miles Farrell, was found shot by police. This is in the chest. This is right outside the house of Fresh Boutique. It's owned by his brother, producer, director, composer, and rapper Drumma Boy Fresh. Farrell later died at a nearby hospital. No one has been arrested. A plane crash near Moscow leaves 71 people dead. Russian officials say the passenger jet went down shortly after takeoff. Investigators say the pilots did not report any problems before the aircraft plunged into the ground. The White House says the U.S. is deeply saddened by the tragic deaths on those aboard Flight 703. And finally, New York's Attorney General is now filing a lawsuit against Hollywood movie producer Harvey Weinstein and the Weinstein Company following an investigation into allegations of sexual misconduct. The state attorney general says the Weinstein Company repeatedly broke New York law by failing to protect its employees from pervasive sexual harassment, intimidation, and discrimination. And Vinny, the attorney general says if Weinstein's company is sold, he wants the victims compensated and those employees protected.
Yeah, and there are also some legal action against him in California of the criminal nature, so we'll keep an eye on all of it. Not a good day for Weinstein. Thanks so much, Ron.
Sure.
Hey, you know, all this rain is keeping our 11 Alive storm trackers busy. Jerry shared this picture of a flooded park that's in Jasper, Georgia, while in Cartersville. Janine says she got so much rain, her backyard now has a creek. And take a look at this shot of the rising Casuati River in Ellijay. That's from Jesus. All right, so Chris, does this mean the drought is over?
Well, that's a difficult answer right now, difficult question to answer right now, because the drought monitor doesn't come out until next Thursday. In fact, the latest report that we have from them is based on last Thursday, and that was based on rainfall from last Tuesday, before last Tuesday. So this doesn't even include the rain that we had on Wednesday or the rain that we had this weekend. So we are thinking that this severe drought up in northwest Georgia most likely is going to go away based on the rain that we have had this weekend. Now, here's another picture. This was sent in by Jerry Rogers in Jasper. She said more than 5 inches of rain in her rain gauge. So even though we don't have a report from the drought monitor until Thursday, we can show you some of the rainfall totals that we have. And this includes just what we had the last hour. I just calculated this. We've had more than a ½ inch of rain, 0.61 inches of rain here in Atlanta today. For the weekend, we've had almost an inch. So that gives us, yes, a rain surplus of almost 2 inches for the year so far. So we do think that this rain that we've had this weekend is going to help us take a big dent out of that drought. And of course, that information comes out as we get into Thursday. More rain in our area now and tonight, and we've extended the flood watch through tomorrow morning. We'll take a closer look at that, the rain, and when we'll see a little bit of a break coming up.
All right, thanks, Chris. Georgia's medical marijuana laws are a step forward for a lot of people who are suffering, but there's an unexpected hurdle for some of the state's youngest patients.